My name is Matt Swatman and I am the Assistant Team Manager of the Herpetology Department at Chester Zoo. I've been here for about 15 years now. So this is our Tuatara exhibit, our temporary Tuatara exhibit that we have on show to the visitors currently. All our famous adult Tuataras are all off show currently, while we're just figuring out what the next steps for them are regarding displaying them. But we didn't want during this period to not have a Tuatara on display because they are kind of an iconic thing about Chester Zoo. So we decided to sort of put this together. As you can see, it's relatively densely planted at low level, although it's still growing in because it's only been functioning for a few months. There's lots of tropical ferns, there's lots of burrows and lots of sort of habitat preference and different temperatures, but it does sit on the cool wall of the building. So as we sort of head towards autumn, we're starting to get like cooler nighttime temperatures, and again it helps them to adapt to, you know, a life similar to how they would have in New Zealand. So although we're in the greenhouse part of the building, this particular bit is the coolest area, and so it does expose them to the lower temperatures that they prefer. Fundamentally, I think they're most famous for is their two lines of top teeth. They have one single layer at the bottom, and basically that single layer like interlays between those two. And then also they have quite a highly evolved third eyelid, which isn't actually an eye at all, although it does have a retina and a lens. But it's actually a light sensor, and it helps them determine between light and day. Although they are referred to as being living fossils, I believe the work that's been done since it suggests that they haven't evolved from lizards, but have actually evolved completely independently. So they're unrelated to squamata. It's just that they happen to look very similar to them. To be honest, I don't think our probably day-to-day visitors do probably appreciate the evolutionary distinction of them. Although we're very fortunate to have like a real sort of hardcore group of members, and they're particularly passionate about Tuatara, and we're always getting, you know, whether we're by the exhibit or something, we're always all members talks, members days, on the days before the pandemic where we used to have a lot more exposure to the members. We would often, have to regale lots and lots of questions from very, very interested members. I mean, the problem with the Tuatara really is, as wonderful as they are, is they spend 6 months of the year hibernating. So I think for the average visitor, particularly in the United Kingdom, they probably consider them quite the elusive, frustrating animal to see. But that's just the way it is. So they're 3/4 insectivorous. I mean, I believe that they have the two top teeth lines and the single one that are evolved to sort of crunch quite hard insects. So I think they eat a lot of beetles, is my impression, in the wild, and then they eat sort of like small birds, small fledgling birds and bird eggs and things like that. But the bulk of the diet is insectivorous. To be honest, the most valuable insight that I've managed to glean is that I don't want to repeat myself, but is the fact that, you know, it took 20 years of just sort of like learning about them, you know, getting to know the animals individually, as I did have quite a personal relationship with each individual animal. I think the only other animals in our department that we have that kind of relationship with is the Komodo dragon, actually. But you can, you know, they do have because of how special they are, keepers do form a bit of a bond with them. It's not in the same way that you would a cat or a dog, or I'm sure how close some of the primate keepers are to some of their animals under their care. But you sort of do get to know their little personalities, you know, and, you know, defining characteristics about, you know, animals being particularly scatty, or some animals being bolder than others, and who will cohabit with who in a burrow, even though they're not sexually mature. Like, things like that became very, very apparent over those first sort of, like, you know, 20 years. And then after that, I think we just started to hone the exhibit to see what worked. I think we probably started out keeping them quite sort of tropical, and we obviously had a lot of advice. It's not like we had to catch them up all the time. Hello. and literally put them in a polystyrene box or a hibernaculum of any sort. We haven't had to do that. I think I'm just guessing, but I think that has probably been quite important. You know, not having the trauma of them being in hand all the time. You know, being checked, measured, weighed constantly. You know, initially when you do that kind of thing, which is part of modern zoo care, you think you're doing right by the animals, but actually with Tuatara, my personal opinion is it might be a bit of a no-no, that they just need continuity to be settled, and then just time. You know, and every change you make, it needs to be measured, and you always have to offset the pros and the cons. Like us changing all their basking arrays like we did about 10 years ago, we had to work into the equation that it was going to take years and years and years for them to actually get over this, because we were going to have to catch them out. We were going to have to put them somewhere just so we could have a group of electricians and into work and then do all this work. And then it was going to, so it had to be worth it, you know.